I would like to bring this West Carrollton Board of Education business meeting to order. It is Wednesday, June 16th, 2021. Roll call, please.
Mr. Cox? Here. Mr. Henry?
Present.
Mr. Llewellyn?
Here.
Mrs. Miller?
Here.
Mr. Wolf?
Here.
We don't have any kids tonight, so if you will join us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we'll introduce everyone. We're still kind of spread throughout. So we have at the head table, we have Mr. Tom Wolf, board member, Mr. Don Henry, board member, Dr. Andrea Townsend, our superintendent. I'm Leslie Miller, board member, Mr. Joe Cox, board member, and serving as vice president this year, and John Llewellyn, board member. And we have Ryan Sloan is our district treasurer. We have Ms. Melissa Tice, our assistant superintendent. We have Mr. Devin Berry, who is our director of human resources. Mr. Jack Haig, who is our business manager. Mr. Ryan Sloan, we already went through that one. Dr. Craig Myers is our curriculum, and Mrs. Julie, and I can't remember Jones is our curriculum director, and she is out there this evening too. What's her name? That one, yeah, okay. All right, it is recommended that the agenda for the June 16th, 2021 meeting be adopted as presented. And there is an addendum.
We have a addendum, add new item 11F.
Okay. Any
So moved.
roll call? Yes. Okay. All right, roll call, please.
Mr. Cox? Yes. Mr. Henry?
Yes.
Mr. Llewellyn?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
It is recommended that the minutes of the regular meeting held on June 2nd, 2021 be approved as submitted. Motion, please.
So moved.
Any adjustments, corrections? Roll call, please.
Mr. Henry?
Yes.
Mr. Llewellyn?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Cox? Yes.
Item number 7, comments from public relating to agenda items. We do not have any this evening. We also do not have our student rep, but Mr. Llewellyn, would you like to make a comment about our program?
I can certainly do that. We had a brief work session before our meeting today to interview some of our board reps applicants, and so we'll be making a decision about that soon and making that public. I want to thank those who did attend those interviews with us today, and we pretty impressed with the kids that came and interviewed with us, and I anticipate that we'll see a little growth in the student rep program here shortly, and they'll be joining us for future meetings real soon.
Sounds good. Item number 9, we'll go to communication update with Mrs. Corbett. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. First off, we have several ways you can find out what's happening in your school district. You can go to our website at wcarrolltonschools.com. You can access Facebook at West Carrollton City Schools or Twitter at WC City Schools. And you can find both of those icons on our webpage at westcarrolltonschools.com. Is your child ready for kindergarten? They're still accepting enrollments. Actually, I should note too, all of our enrollments now are online, and you can access through the same procedure, but there is a different area to click for kindergarten. But the child, if registering for kindergarten, must be 5 by August 1st and reside within the West Carrollton School District. You can go online at westcarrolltonschools.com, click on enrollment, and follow the instructions under 21-22 kindergarten enrollment. I thought I'd give you just a picture. I don't know if you've driven by these sites recently, But at the top, it's the pre-K 1 building, and there was a big crane there. So lots of work going on. Below is the 5-6 building location, which is at Holiday, and you can see both buildings, the area in front, and I should say that top middle picture was a before picture. The one to the right is an after picture. That would be in front of Walter Shade and our board office, and they are preparing those areas for parking. So lots of exciting things happening there. And we also just added construction reports to our website. You can find that under building project at westcarrolltonschools.com. And if you go to the reports, you can follow. They're numbered, and if you start at the bottom and work your way to the top, the newest one is on top, you can see the progress as they move through these projects. And last school board meeting, we made a mistake, and the retirees, we mentioned the people that were here, we read their bios, but we missed reading the bios on the other folks. And so I wanted to share with you tonight pictures of them. They did not get to attend, but we want to honor them as much as the people that were here. So.
They did so because when they asked him how he was, he would always comment, as purty as ever. Mr. Purdy began working as a substitute school bus driver for the West Carrollton School District in 2014. By the start of the 2015 school year, Tom became a regular driver. He drove a bus for Kettering schools for 3.5 years before coming to the district. Tom retired as an electrician prior to driving a school bus. Mr. Purdy always wears hilarious t-shirts. It's his trademark. They always put a smile on your face. He loves his students and is very dependable. He's going to be missed.
And I should mention, too, this was a picture of him at a holiday, and the teachers celebrated him. It was his birthday, and they had a lot of fun.
After working 20 years in the tool and die industry, Dwayne Cox began his second career in the West Carrollton School District as a second shift custodian in 2011. Dwayne's work ethic and attention to detail made him the perfect custodian. He was very dedicated and dependable. Dwayne was always eager to help whenever and wherever he was needed. The ECC teachers commented to Belinda that Dwayne fixed things they hadn't noticed were broken or hadn't yet had a chance to write up a repair order for. In retirement, Dwayne plans to finish many projects that he started, including restoring his grandpa's 1940 Chevy. He also plans to spend time with his family and travel to Nashville as much as possible. Dwayne also plans to use his custodial skills at home to keep his house shiny clean for his extremely smart and beautiful wife, Belinda.
I didn't write that, but it sounds like something I would have written. And I shamelessly stole this photo off the Facebook page, and there is his beautiful wife, Belinda.
Vicki Marchese joined the West Carrollton School District in 1998 as a part-time 2-hour cook. In 1999, she became a cashier before transitioning to head cook in 2001. During her 23 years in the district, Vicki has had the opportunity to work in almost every building, finishing her career as head cook at Harry Russell Elementary. Vicki's kindness to students and staff will be missed. She's looking forward to spending more time with her grandchildren, including a new grandchild due this summer. Vicki's time at home will be spent trying to keep up with her newly adopted collie puppy. Barbara Parks began her career with the West Carrollton School District as a substitute school bus driver in 1982. She became a regular driver in 1984. Barb left the district in 1988 but returned to her career as a driver in 1991. She is a graduate of West Carrollton High School. Prior to working in the West Carrollton School District, Barb spent some time working at the NCR factory and as a retail clerk at the new Dayton Mall. She is such a dedicated, dependable, caring driver. No matter what the transportation department needs, she is there to do it. Barb has transported our special needs students for most of her career, as well as students in the Singing Hills, Munger Road area. She loves her students and they love her. Barb is there for all of her co-workers if they need a shoulder to lean on. We hope Barb enjoys traveling, dancing, and spending time with her family upon her retirement. She also plans to play a lot of pickleball with retired bus drivers Virginia and Cheryl. Debbie Wackerman was hired as a part-time cook in 1994 and worked her way up to full-time cook in 1998 before resigning in 2004. But she returned to the district in 2005 and again worked her way up to head cook by 2008. Prior to working in the West Carrollton School District, Debbie also worked in food service at Caring City Schools and as a part-time secretary at Judson Baptist Church in West Carrollton. Debbie has served in every kitchen in the district. She always strived to provide a caring and nurturing environment for all of the children she encountered. Soft-spoken and always willing to listen, our students loved her. When her husband received an opportunity to provide ministry services in Florida, they made the difficult decision to relocate. They're now enjoying the beautiful Florida sunshine. Teresa Yoder retired from the middle school as a 6th grade social studies teacher. She is one of our pirate success stories, graduating from West Carrollton in 1979, the Ohio State University in 1984, and receiving her master's from Concordia University, Chicago in 2015. Teresa returned to West Carrollton in 2003 as a 5th grade teacher after a late release from Dayton Public Schools in July with 16 years of experience. She has truly been a team member throughout her career, transitioning from 4th, 5th, and 6th grade as the district needs have changed. Teresa, you finished the pirate Iditarod. Enjoy retirement.
So once again, we want to congratulate all of our retirees and apologize that these didn't get read at the last meeting. All of these people were just as beneficial to the school district and to the success of our students. I might also mention, I've got the opportunity, if you notice 2 of our bus drivers retired, and Jack, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but we are always short bus drivers and always in need of substitute bus drivers. They do provide training, and you can contact the lovely Belinda Cox at bcox@wcsd.k12.oh.us, or you can give her a call, 937-859-5121, extension 8959. So if you're interested in being a bus driver, please contact her. Again, they will provide training. A lot of people come in and say, oh, I'd never drive a school bus, and then they end up driving a school bus and love it. So it is a great way to connect with our pirates. And just another reminder, first day of school, August 18th. Plus, I just love this picture, so. And that is all I have this evening.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
May I interrupt?
Yes.
She said something about having the opportunity to say something. You might find this hard to believe, but I actually left something out last meeting when I was talking about Terry Wolf. One of the things that I wanted to say and did not is in 1997, she had started at Shade. In 1997, she actually moved to Schnell, and that was like 2 years before the great change occurred, where Shade became a kindergarten ECC. So she was like 2 years ahead of that. But what I should have read was this comment from Barb Gardecki, and you all can say who. But anyways, this is from Barb Gardecki, who was her principal at Schnell. Terry Wolf is a principal's dream to work with day by day. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, we have we have a couple presentations this evening. We have a bunch of books up here that get to be explained. Chemistry is by me. So we have our curriculum people here. Go right ahead. You have the floor and the books.
Well, good evening, everyone. I want to share with you some work that we've been doing in the curriculum office. We're always busy, and a couple of things that we have are up for adoption and choices our teachers have made, one being in the area of science. So I wanted to explain the adoption process that we went through. I know that the words are very small on the screen, so I'll make sure to read them. I actually might struggle to read them myself.
You trying to say we're old? You can't see it?
No, I'm actually old. I can't see these at all. Anyway, after we came back in person, we got a team together of grade level teachers, EL teacher representation, some of our special ed teachers, and met 6 or 7 meetings after school from March to May of this spring. And we had evaluated several options, and the options that are up for adoption tonight are the ones that are in front of you. So some of the vendors that we looked at, we used a criteria sheet, and so we went through the same process and looked at each one of these. We looked at Amplify Science, we looked at some McGraw-Hill products, Inspire Science, Savis Interactive Science, which is what you have in front of you, Cengage, and some other high school options as well. So we were looking, some of our criteria was that we were looking through all of the resources equally, trying to be objective, and going through looking at how the books wrote student-friendly targets, if there were teacher supports, if there was differentiation, ideas and options, what the assessments look like, did they have a technology component, and one of the biggest, actually two of the biggest pieces of criteria were they aligned to Ohio standards, and did they have hands-on opportunities for the students. And just those last two really knocked a few of those out of the running pretty early. So we chose K through 8. They all agreed to the same resource, and that was Savis Interactive Science. And I put a little picture of the kits because every single grade level comes with kits, ready to go, easy to use, but the kids have that hands-on opportunity, and that's so important. And if you've ever spent any time, or if you've ever been a science teacher, trying to get labs together and preparing all of that is very time-consuming. So this was a great resource, or will be a great resource for them. And then for high school, we went with 2 companies just to meet our needs of all the different courses. So what you have, I think I brought chemistry. So we have Inspire Science with McGraw-Hill, and that is our sciences that are physical science, our chemistry, and our physics. And then our Savis, which is the same company as the K-8, those cover the rest of them, like forensics. We do have CCP chemistry there, environmental science, just to name a few. So that is what we chose. Again, we had a great time doing it. The teachers were really vested, and went back to their buildings, communicated with the rest of their teachers, and came back, and like I said, pretty unanimous in our choices. So we're just very happy that we were able to provide resources that haven't been there for many, many years.
I'm just leafing through this. I see STEM unit projects in the chemistry.
Yes.
So.
Yes. A lot of them have a STEM component. So a lot of sciences have 3 domains, and then there's a 4th one in some of the textbooks that are a STEM domain or a STEM unit. So that's also very important to expose them to the engineering practices and principles as much as possible.
One of the comments you made was that, if I I hope I don't misquote you, but what I thought I heard sitting up here is that the K-8, it seemed like everybody had agreement. Can you kind of share with us how many people were involved in the decisions you made?
So
What it
we
looked
chose one teacher per grade level per building. So we had 3 to 4 kindergarten teachers. We had 3 first, 3 second, 3 third, 3 fourth, 3 fifth, and then for middle and high, we just invited the whole department because there weren't that many teachers. There were 6 teachers total. So we actually had the elementary meetings separate from the middle and high school meetings, yet ran them through the same process, the evaluation process, and they came together and they both unanimously chose that resource. For the K through 2 teachers, they were very concerned about the literacy component in the science resource, but they felt that after looking at what was there, that was they were very comfortable with the literacy component, especially for K to 2. So, and then they love the kits. So that was so important because a lot of our classrooms just don't have enough science materials that are hands-on. So that was a big selling feature to them.
Okay, thank you.
I want to make a comment. A couple years ago, there's a Mrs. Phillips at the CTC, and this is Rhonda, not Roberta. But anyway, she's basically our textbook person, okay? And she would do the same thing, but not a whole lot of comment. But all of a sudden, this representative from Vandalia Butler started to literally go through those books, and next thing you know, he's sitting there highlighting all this stuff, and we're in total amazement that he would take the time to do that, and he did that for maybe a couple years, and then he got off the CTC board, and I assure you that the person from Vandalia doesn't do that, and nobody else does it either. I think one of you ought to do that next year, is basically follow up with her and get those books and go through them and kind of report on them. I think that'd be an excellent idea.
Well, you're welcome to come and attend all the meetings with us. That would be fine. You can come to the adoptions and adoption meetings and.
After I'm gone.
Okay. I won't invite you.
All right, I get the next part of this. Maybe legible font on the screen here. But this is a pre-K curriculum adoption. We had Big Day for Pre-K, which was Journey's HMH product, and we felt that it wasn't meeting the needs of our pre-K students. So we had all of our pre-K teachers pilot some curriculum that's pre-K. We looked at Horizon, pre-K, Scholastic, it's called Pre-K on My Way, and then Frog Street, and you can guess which one won the teacher's approval here. We are going with Frog Street, and there's specific attributes that we really liked about this curriculum. Obviously, when you're talking about pre-K, you're talking about hands-on activities, interactive, read-alouds, and so the literacy and math component of Frog Street really struck us as quality. And Ms. Miller, even as you're looking through those brochures, you'll see they do STEM at pre-K. There's a whole STEM area inside that catalog as well. Like I said, it's activity-based. There's the special needs adaptations are included in this, so that was something we felt was critical in pre-K, as well as EL supports. All of the materials are available in Spanish as well. Social emotional foundation, all of the content is built upon that, and it meets our standards and our step up to quality requirements. So the pre-K teachers were all involved in the process. They piloted the program, absolutely enjoyed it, and are excited to see how you vote later tonight. The other adoption I have is the K-3 phonics adoption. We've noticed that there's just a missing component to our ELA curriculum in the phonics area. It's something we've identified in our one needs assessment, and it's in our one plan for the next few years to focus on phonics. And so we specifically went out looking at a lot of phonics products on the market. So we looked at 4. We looked at Really Great Reading, which I thought should have been disqualified for the title Really Great, but we looked at it anyways. We looked at Saxon Phonics, which is a very popular product. out there. We also looked at Foundations, which is also a very well-known product from Wilson Reading. And then we looked at 95% Group, which was an intervention product originally, but they've created a core phonics program, which we immediately enjoyed because of the structure. It's in those little bags that I put up on the table here. It is an extremely user-friendly outline, and there's three main things that we really liked about 95% that we think are going to benefit our students in a major way. And it's that specific focus on segmenting and manipulating all of the sounds and spoken words, and that's really the definition of phonemic awareness. And then, taking those being able to transition students from sound by sound reading. You've all been around a child who's learning sound by sounds, and they're trying to structure a word together and get it fluently. And so being able to get to that transition to a smooth blending word, there's a specific blending component within 95% that we're excited to roll out. And overall, of course, this is going to increase fluency, and it's going to help us grow academically with vocabulary. So this is a component that only will take a half an hour out of a K through 3 teacher's day. So every day, do a little phonics, 30 minutes at the most. It supplements, it doesn't replace the ELA curriculum, but it's something we found in our ELA curriculum that was just missing and wasn't strong enough, so we wanted to adopt this to make sure that we had that strong phonics base for our students. That's all I have.
So, based on what you just said, would that mean that K through 3 kids, for the most part, in the last decade, haven't had a lot of phonics or any at all?
They've had phonics. I think what Julie and I are doing is right-sizing things within our curriculum department that we're able to dig so much deeper now and get so much more specific about the needs of our students. They've absolutely had phonics. There's just a better way for us to meet the needs of our students with phonics. When we use iReady, which is a English language arts assessment, research-based assessment tool, we notice specific weaknesses in phonics and phonological awareness and all those areas. So we want to really target and become more precise with what we're doing.
So a couple of the books that I was looking at, they look like they're workbooks that will the students get those workbooks?
Yes.
And is that something that will be an at-home and in-class work packet? Because my high schooler very rarely brings a book home, and he says the books are supposed to stay at the school. So are these also going to be part of the homework program, or are they going to be just an in-class program as far as these workbooks here?
That's really up to a teacher's discretion. And I don't want to speak on behalf of Julie, but especially with 95%, they've developed such a consumable framework that the kids are going to have these books, and they're going to go through them, and they're going to write in them. Everything is, you can tell by the way it's structured, it's meant to be a consumable. And there's also an online version. I'll be honest and tell you that I'm not thrilled to put a kindergartner in front of a computer and have them do things online unless it makes sense. I think the more one-on-one in person we can provide, the better. So they can absolutely send them home with them. They can give them assignments. In kindergarten and first, we try not to homework students to death or anything like that. It would be great if parents read to their children every night, but I'm sure that the majority of the time that will be used in class.
It just seemed like for a short bit there, some of the at-home work with the books almost didn't exist. And now we're kind of coming back into that, having more of that hands-on. And I'm not counting COVID and being off for COVID, because that was, of course, mostly online. But it just seemed like my son, who already graduated, there was a small stint there of about 3 years that there just wasn't anything coming home as far as a book. They didn't have a study book. So where was this information at? What's in the book? We learned about it today. Well, where's the book? Well, it's in the classroom.
Yeah.
How does that help us?
Sure.
It doesn't help us. When you try to steer those kids back to the information that they're getting in class instead of going to the internet and getting something that might be right or kind of right, or going back to the way that I did math, not the way they did math.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah, well, a good example of that is the literature books that now exist at the high school level. Those really thick literature books that no kid ever wanted to bring home. Those are now consumable, flimsy paperback that we get copies for each student every year.
It would be my luck to bump into this question. Is a seventh grade, it is Ohio benchmark practice, okay?
Are you quizzing me right now?
Huh?
All right.
C.
Now, here's a question, okay? The specific heat of iron is 450 J / parentheses kg times K. How much thermal energy must be transferred to 15 kilograms of iron to raise its temperature by 4.0 K?
I thought the answer was purple. So
Is that the state of Ohio for you, or is that?
every year the standards just keep getting pushed down. Push down, push down, push down.
Tom, I taught sixth grade science, and that would be something I would have taught when I taught in another state. So the fact they're just being pushed down now. So
I don't remember that in my seventh grade.
it was probably in your high school chemistry back then.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for all of that, and all of these, we can peruse through them and look. And as he stated, we will be voting on these later. Now to our next, which is our ESSER funds.
Sure, yes. So,
right ahead.
elementary and secondary school emergency relief funds. As you know, we have been working on this for several weeks. Our cabinet, Mr. Haig, Dr. Myers, Mrs. Jones, Mr. Berry, Mrs. Tice, and myself have spent a lot of time looking at what we can use our federal funds for. We've had ESSER 1, 2, and 3, and we have spent a lot of time. You all have a tremendously large Ryan-sized paper of our budget that we've worked on and the materials. And this is our public presentation. We've also collected data from our community, about almost 700 responses, 699. And we're going to share those results with you tonight. And this presentation will be posted with our district plan on the district website.
All right, thank you. So as Dr. Townsend said, getting confused with the doctors in the room. As Dr. Townsend said, this is our opportunity, public presentation for public comment for ESSER funds for this year. It's a requirement for our ESSER 3 funds. We have already had 2 rounds of ESSER funds, ESSER 1 and 2, which I'll explain a little bit about just in contrast to what the requirements are for this grant. But this set of funding, this round of funding, is the largest and has the most requirements attached to it, one of which is this presentation to you and invitation for the public to provide comment. So the Elementary and Secondary Schools Emergency Relief Fund is provided. They are federal funds that are provided to mitigate learning loss during the COVID-19 pandemic. And you can see that we have already received some funds in this past school year. ESSER 1 funds, we received about $1 million, slightly under $1 million. ESSER 2, we're at, I think, Ryan, are we like 396,000? Is that right at that amount?
ESSER 2?
ESSER 2?
You said 1,000.
I'm sorry, million, 3.96 million.
Approximately, yes.
Approximately, yeah. So I've just rounded up these numbers, but we're right at $2 million that were in the ESSER 2 funds. Those funds could be spread across 2 years, and so we opted to do that, split that into $2 million this coming year and $2 million for FY23. ESSER 3 funds have a longer lifespan, and that's our greatest amount of funding. We have about $8.8 million available total, and so when we spread that out, we just kind of took it and divided by a third and said in each of 3 years, 22, 23, and 24, we would spend just under $3 million. You can see that that totals quite a large sum. So we're at nearly $14 million from the federal government that has been directed to our school district, just as it's been directed to other all school districts across the country, to provide additional support to to recoup learning loss primarily. That's the fundamental goal. And then also to maintain services in districts and employment for folks. So we're going to talk a little bit about how that plan developed. ESSER 1 and 2 are less restrictive than ESSER 3, and they can be used largely to supplant current expenses. That's what we did with our first round of funding. We used that to maintain salaries for individuals even while we were off work. For instance, the mental health therapists, we still had a contract that we had to pay for mental health therapists, even though we didn't have kids who were in school necessarily being seen and being billed for those services. So it helped us to stay whole and keep those folks employed. ESSER 2 is very similar and will be used very similarly to those. ESSER 3 funds must be used to mitigate student learning loss, and there is a forced 20% set aside of those funds that have to be based on or used for evidence-based interventions. So that's a big piece that's different than the other two pieces. There also is that requirement for public input, and we generated a survey to the community. We had community members, students, staff, and parents respond to those surveys, and that went out on May 27th. That was open for about a week. And I'm going to go over the results of that survey with you here in a few minutes. Based on the information from the survey that we completed, and then also just based on the knowledge that we have of our students and where they have been over the course of the last year and when we have conducted assessments upon their return to school after our closure, you know, we had ideas as educators about what we really believe is important. And so we combined, it was interesting that really what our top considerations were lined up pretty strongly to the survey results. So we put a plan together. We are required to post that plan by next Thursday on our website, and then also to submit that to ODE. And then our federal application will be due no later than August 20th. All right, so I have mentioned this a little bit. Our community's survey design, we assessed community members' input, staff, students, and parents. And it's a little bit hard to read up there, but there are 5 primary areas. There are 16 pots of money, or 16 allowable expenses that you can use in ESSER 3. We selected our top 5 as a district, which were technology, mental health services, academic programs, PPE, which is personal protective equipment or other, safety, hygienic enhancing measures, and then preserving district resources. So all of those 5 areas were assessed in the survey and targeted to those community groups. In terms of our survey results, we did have 699 respondents, and you can see in yellow up there, those are parent responses. I cannot see, I think it's about 65% of the staff respondents were parents. So that was the largest group responding, followed by staff members, then students, and then students, and then a small amount of community members, some of whom may be here at the board table tonight. But it was nice, we had that posted on the district website and then on our Facebook page. And so, you know, just anybody who is connected to West Carrollton Schools was invited and able to participate in that survey. So going back to those 5 areas, you can see in blue, we asked respondents on the survey to identify these 5 areas that were being assessed: academic supports, mental health, technology, et cetera, and to determine whether they feel that responding to those areas would be very important, somewhat important, or not important at all. And in terms of academic supports, 86% of respondents felt that it was very important. So if folks said that it wasn't important, they just skipped to the next topic. But if they did think it was very to somewhat important, they were asked to rank, I'm sorry, that's not larger, but they were asked to rank certain programs as most important to them. The bar that comes all the way to the end with 541 out of 699 respondents saying it was important is additional staff during the day to provide tutoring or extra support to our students. Second most commonly popular idea was after-school tutoring and summer school programs, jump starts, camps, those kinds of things for kids. In the area of mental health, interestingly enough, 86% of respondents also indicated that they felt like this was very important. And of those areas that we suggested were access to more individual counseling during the day, and we have included an increase in the number of mental health therapists that we're contracting with Samaritan Behavioral Health for. And then also school-based lessons on ways that kids can cope and ways kids can deal with disappointment or practice being engaged and making friends and developing positive self-regulating behaviors. So those were by far the two biggest areas of interest from the community. Next largest response for very important resources would be technology, with 76% of our population saying that they really felt like that was a high need for us in this plan. The biggest group that was interesting, what parents wanted and staff members wanted the most were for independent instructional software pieces that kids could use for remediation or practice at home. So that was something that was very important to them. Upgraded Chromebooks also was listed as an important topic, although I'm not sure that they were aware of how many Chromebooks, folks, when they were responding to this, how many Chromebooks we were able to purchase last year with other funds, other federal funds that were available. So we have a lot of those, definitely a lot. Next area is personal protective equipment, and we start to drop here. We had only 37% of folks say that this was very important. The most that people thought was important was to have hand sanitizer available at school, and Jack can verify that we have tons of that available. We already have tons of that. And enhanced cleaning protocols. So the third thing, which is free, are to continue to offer the school-sponsored vaccination sites, and we do have plans to continue that even this summer. The final area that we asked about was just using some of the funds to preserve the district's financial wellness, and there were 46% of respondents who indicated that that was a very important need in the district, which was a little bit surprising, but positively so for me, because, you know, I mean, the intent of these funds is to address the needs of our students. And so it's nice that many people said, yeah, that's somewhat important, but, you know, we really need to meet the needs of our kids first. All right, so as a result, you can see that I have listed here the area of need, which was what we were assessing in the survey, and then I listed what folks had rated as very important, the percentage rated very important, and then the total that we have budgeted within this plan for the ESSER 3 funds. So 86% of folks rated academic programs, and we have $4.6 million associated with that, either through curriculum purchases or new staff. And in terms of academic programs, the most expensive thing that we do is hire staff members. You know, we can buy kits, we can buy books that can be used over and over again, and those are not going to cost nearly as much as it costs to employ a person every day, all day, to work with our students. So that's why that number is so much larger than some of the others. And with mental health services, that number is smaller than technology or district reserves, which ranked higher in terms of greater importance to the community. But we do have wellness dollars from the state of Ohio, $1.2 million available in the budget for those things as well. So that's how we're paying for our contract with Samaritan Behavioral Health and some of the other measures that we've put in place. So that, while that is still very important to us, we have other funds available that we could put toward that to supplement. So this will be interesting. Okay. ESSER 3 district plan. We have, I separated out, I did not include anything that talked about the district reserves, using these funds for district reserves, because that just simply goes into the general fund. And whatever we are not using for these things, we'll do that. We'll fill in those gaps. But I wanted to just kind of go over an overview of what each of these other 4 areas are planned for in the plan. It's not a very good sentence, is it? Planned for in the plan. But ESSER 3 district plan includes academic programs, after-school programs for students in 1st through 12th grade. We have opted not to include students in kindergarten because we just believe that it's a long enough day already. And so to keep children at school until 5 o'clock when they're 5 years old is probably not going to be a great use of anyone's time. So we're opting for just after-school programs in grades 1 through 12. Summer school programs will be back in full swing for all students K through 12, and it's been a while since we've done these things, but they're important. They cost money, and they cost time, but they are important, and we're excited to have the resources to bring those back. We have, our curriculum department has generated a long list of supplemental programs, curricular pieces that we can purchase in the areas of math, science, and ELA. And so those things are included there. And then we have new staff members as well. I believe we have 9 new staff members who we are looking at in terms of academic programs. Some other new staff positions in other areas, but I think there are 9, and we'll go over what those are later. In our mental health area of the plan, we will be employing 2 social emotional learning coaches at the district level, 1 for elementary students and 1 for secondary students. The focus of those positions will be to coach teachers, to work with principals on school-wide behavior interventions, to work with families, to provide resources in the community, and to bring knowledge to us, to say these are the kinds of best practices or that we should be implementing, or help to analyze the data that was mentioned in our panorama survey about how students' perceptions affect attendance and school performance and discipline in school. We also are going to be purchasing a K-12 social emotional learning program, and I think we've decided on that. It's something called the 7 Mindsets. It's a nice program with a lot of coaching that puts some framework together to support our newly hired coaches. There's a lot of PD that's there for that, so I think those are 2 very positive pieces. Moving to PPA, again, that's the personal protective equipment. We will maintain, we hired 2 additional custodians this year to deal with enhanced cleaning protocols, and we will continue to employ those 2 staff members in those positions. We also hired clinic attendants because of enhanced clinic protocols, health protocols, and contact tracing. And so we will continue to employ those 2 folks as well. In the area of technology, one of the things that we had to consider in this ESSER 3 plan is they wanted to know how can we have a continuity of service even if a pandemic were to occur again, even if we were to have a resurgence of COVID. What are the kinds of things that get in our way? And one of the things is our teachers' lack of access to technology at home that would necessarily support the same kinds of software and programs that we're using here at school. And so we have put a portion of the money aside so that we'll be purchasing laptops for all of our instructional staff throughout the district. We also are going to purchase a data warehouse and the associated software with that. And when we talk about a data warehouse, one of the things that we need to be able to do is make good decisions. We need to know what curricular materials we need to purchase. We need to know how many staff members to hire, in what areas, if it's phonics for our young students or algebraic thinking for our older students in math. If those are the areas that they're having difficulty with, we need information quickly at our fingertips so that we can make decisions about how to get them what they need. And so we've researched some data warehouse pieces and software that will give us the information that we need in those areas. And then also, we had added a tech support position this year to help with all of the Chromebooks and other pieces of technology, hotspots that we were purchasing for the district for student use. But that takes people. If we double the number of Chromebooks we have, we double the number of repairs needed. So we need people who can continue to keep that going, and that position will be maintained. So that gives you kind of a general overview of what our focus is with those dollars. I wanted to touch a little bit more about on the new staffing, and so I've kind of outlined here, and these are 3-year positions with the exception of one at the middle school, and I'll explain that. At the ECC, we'll be adding 1 kindergarten interventionist, and you know, we feel like it'll just be good to have an extra person who can pull kids out, not necessarily kids who are special needs, but just to work with small groups of students on some skills that they may be lacking. And so that extra person to help as we kind of sort through that data and see where our kids need more support will be beneficial. At the elementary, we're adding 3 new reading specialists, and those folks will be working with our 4th graders who would have been retained had the 3rd grade reading guarantee still been in effect for this past school year. Since that requirement was lifted, we didn't have to contend with that, thankfully, but we do have 4th graders who in any other year, based on their scores in reading, would have been retained. And so the first goal of these folks, and there'll be 1 at Holiday, 1 at Schnell, 1 at Russell, the first goal will be that they'll work with those 4th graders who would have been retained otherwise. And then they'll start working their way backwards. So they'll work with 3rd graders who are at risk of reading, and our 1st and 2nd grade, or 3rd graders who are at risk of not passing the 3rd grade reading guarantee, and then 1st and 2nd graders who are on reading improvement plans. At the middle school, we are going to be adding 2, and these folks at ECC, elementary, high school, and district level, we're going to start, those folks are being hired now. Those are either posted or being posted in the next couple of days, and we'll interview and hire those folks who will start in the fall. At the middle school, we're going to start 2 intervention labs, a math lab and a reading lab, and we're going to start that next year, though, because we have a new principal coming in, and it seems like a tall order to have to redo the schedule and create those programs at this late date. And so we're going to give him a year to get his feet under him and make sure that we implement that well from day 1. So that'll be just years 2 and 3. At the high school, we have decided to hire another credit recovery teacher, and so that person will be working with students to make sure that, especially, you know, number 1 priority will be our seniors, but then any other students who may not be on track in the lower grades, especially due to COVID and all of the remote work that we had kids doing. At the district level, I think this is very exciting. We've been able to hire 4 coaches. Well, we've been able to slate to hire 4 coaches. We haven't done it yet. But we will be hiring 2 SEL coaches, family resource / social emotional learning coaches. And those folks will be the ones who, as I mentioned before in the mental health piece, will be working with families to connect them with community resources, and then also working with our teachers, our principals, and not so much directly students, but with those other adults who really impact kids so that we can bring them up to speed on some of the best practices that promote happiness at school and success in the classroom. We're also going to be hiring 2 additional academic coaches, both at the secondary level, 1 in the area of math and 1 in the area of English language arts. And those are needed. We have 2 great coaches already, Jen Robinson and Mindy Bolster. They are both elementary trained teachers, and we really felt like it was important to bring the same kind of expertise to the middle school and high school with folks who are similarly certified. And that is a summary of our plan. You have before you a budget that outlines broken down academic programs, mental health services, technology. It's broken all of those areas apart, and it gives you an idea of which expenses occur in which years and the amounts of those for a little more information. But if you have any questions or comments, now's the time. I'd love to hear them.
Comments, guys?
Yeah, way back in the middle of all that, you used the term evidence-based. Now, I interpret that as saying when we adopt a program and spend all this money, we have some sense that, and some evidence that it's going to work.
Yep.
On the other hand, somebody might interpret that as saying that, here, let me just ask this. Will we have to, at any point in time, have to demonstrate to the state that, yes, we spent all this money and it did work?
They definitely are going to want reports. But I can tell you, it's not going to be a matter of, that didn't work, you need to give us the money back. They're going to want to know whether our plans were effective, and they're going to know that based on our student results. You know, or what do our attendance rates look like? What do our discipline rates look like? What do our state assessments look like? When they talk about evidence-based interventions, there is already a list in that ESSER guide for application of the kinds of things that are evidence-based. And I mentioned 16 areas, 16 pots of allowable expenses. Those things speak to what some of the evidence-based interventions are. For instance, one of them is mask wearing for unvaccinated folks. That's listed as an evidence-based intervention. Using the hand sanitizer, social distancing, all those things are listed as evidence-based approaches. In terms of curriculum purchases, there's something that we can go to called the What Works Clearinghouse. And it tells us lots of those curriculums that you'll see. It will list what the curriculum is, or what the item is. Can't think of the word I'm looking for, but it will list what these different curriculum materials are and whether they have been vetted and whether they have had positive results for students. There are other things that are evidence-based, like lower class size, or after-school tutoring programs, or summer school tutoring programs. They're evidence-based because they focus on delivering interventions outside of the regular school day rather than pulling a kid during math to work on reading. So they might get better at reading, but they didn't learn anything in math because they weren't in the math class. So those kinds of things are already evidence-based, and so we've selected some of those things on that merit.
My only concern is that just how much the state wants, and I have forever been critical of the state testing, which is a part of this whole scene. I would be content in saying that the fact that we graduated 232 students, that's pretty good evidence that everything we've done for them in the last 12 years, 13 years, worked. That might not satisfy some people up in Columbus, let's face it. They want more, which is one of the reasons we keep having this testing. And on the one hand, I've been opposed to that for different reasons, but at least it's part of this whole assessment and verification and offering evidence that what we're doing is working. The other area that I didn't vote for this, but under technology, the idea of trying to help parents, especially this past year when so many students were home and doing stuff on a computer, to help them help their students get through that. I wasn't sure we wanted to commit to that, so I didn't vote for it, because what would that mean for us as a district in terms of going, I mean, would it involve actually going into homes or try to have meetings and all that kind of, I said, well, let's just don't go there, but I'm not sure what that's going to involve.
Well, some of that, I mean, I'm thinking about Joe's question about, or John's, I'm not sure which one asked about, were we not teaching phonics before? Okay, so yes, we've always taught phonics, but the world has changed. And so parents don't necessarily sing nursery rhymes with their kids anymore, or play some of the counting and clapping and musical games that promote kind of an awareness of rhymes and patterns in words. And so when we stop doing those things, that's difficult for kids to make the same progression that they might have made 10 or 20 or 15 years ago. What we do in providing support to parents in terms of online learning is to say, these are the things that we can do to help you. We can communicate with you. We can say through a parent engagement staff member or through teachers or principals, here are some great things you can do with your preschoolers and kindergartners for phonics awareness. And then hopefully they're better prepared when they come to school and get those phonics lessons. Same thing with remote learners. How do we work with parents? How do we give them ideas for structuring work at home? How much time should kids spend on the computer? How many breaks should they have? All those kinds of things. I think that's the kind of support we can give to parents. We certainly can't go into the homes of every student to provide those personally.
Anyone else?
I just had a quick question. On the paperwork, you said you're going to have this posted on the website.
We're not going to have that posted on the website.
Okay.
No, the slide presentation.
Okay. The slide presentation showed that we had a 8.8 million ESSER 3.
Mm-hmm.
The paperwork that I have in front of me says a 7.227. So the shortfall's a 1.5. Is that going to be going towards the tech and the district reserves?
Not toward tech, toward district reserves.
Okay. So what is the tech under on this sheet? Because I don't see anything that says tech.
It's
I see the other.
the very bottom. So technology expenditures on the bottom of page 2, it says technology subtotal 1.26.
Okay. All right, I got that. So the
And
district.
then the total is the 7.2.
Okay.
And whatever is between that and 8.8 will go back into district
District
reserves.
reserves. Okay. Just trying to
And
follow.
we've budgeted a little heavy. I always round up the dollars, you
Okay.
know. So we may end up with 1.7 that goes back into district reserves.
I was just trying to understand where that little shortfall was at because I didn't see that between
Yeah.
this one and this one was the.
Yeah,
district.
whatever we don't spend will go into the district reserves.
And is the state, it looks like they've got a percentage that can actually go into the reserves, like a 2% or 5%. Like I was just reading that, it was like a 5%. So we meet all those, of course, I'm guessing.
We well exceed everything that they require.
Because there was a lot of percentage marks in there.
There are.
All right, thank you.
When I I certainly, I won't say this is exact because I did the math really fast, and even using my phone calculator, don't know that I can trust this, but it's close. If I just went down the list of annual expenses that you put on this budget, it was just shy of $2 million. So my question is, some of the staffing increases that you mentioned, are the folks we hire going to know that this hiring we're doing is based on funds we may not always have?
They will. In many cases, we already have, for instance, the SEL, or I'm sorry, not the SEL, the math and ELA coaches for secondary, they're current employees. If at the end of these 3 years we can't continue to sustain that, then they would go back into their teaching positions, and they know that. For new staff, they're going to be young staff members who are every year. It's not like they're held in a separate pot of people that aren't getting seniority or still employed by the district. They are our employees. So if, for instance, we no longer had the reading specialists at the 3 elementaries, but the teacher who was teaching that had a K-3 license and we had a first grade opening because somebody got married or moved away or got pregnant or retired, they would go into that spot. The likelihood that with this number of positions being hired, that in 3 years someone would lose their job is, I wouldn't say that it's 0, but it's very close to that, based on our history.
And that's really just because of attrition more than,
It's because of attrition.
Okay. That's what I'm trying to get at.
And because we're hiring teachers who are qualified to do lots of things. So there's flexibility in placement.
I'm not seeing any social workers. What do they fall under?
They are, let's see, they are under mental health programs. I think so. It's all academic, mental health. It says SEL/family resource. And they will be, what we've said is preferred background social work. It could be sociology, it could be psychology, but you know, we prefer someone that has an actual social work license.
So you're looking at 4 of those?
Two of them.
Two.
Two of them. One would be dedicated to the elementaries, one would be dedicated to high school, middle school and high school secondary.
Any other questions or comments? No? Yes, no. Okay. Well, thank you.
Okay,
You've
all
done
right, thank you.
a lot of work, and we appreciate it. We were gifted with a lot of money, and we can put it to good use for our students. So, thank you. Oh, thank you. All right, now we will go on to our business, and item number 11 deals with certificated personnel items. Mr. Berry, good evening.
Good evening. The superintendent recommends that the board approve the following personnel items. Item 11A, accept the resignation of the listed individuals. B, conditionally grant a limited teaching contract to the following individuals for the 2021-2022 school year, pending approval by the Bureau of Criminal Identification and Investigation and Consensual Drug Screening as required by Ohio Revised Code 3319.291 and the policies of the West Carrollton City School District. 11C, approve 3 extended days, June 1st to the 3rd, 2021, for the listed individual to be paid at her 2020-2021 daily rate. 11D, approve up to a maximum of 8 days, July 6th through the 21st, 2021, for the listed individual to be paid at his daily rate. 11E, grant an unpaid leave of absence to 2 listed individuals for the 2021-2022 school year. And on the addendum, item 11F, rescind the limited teaching contract for the listed individual for the 2021-2022 school year.
All right. I need a motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Second.
Any comments?
One that may be a bit confusing, referring to our new middle school principal. Their year, his current year in his current district has been extended to June 29th. So his last day is the 30th, and he has a lot of work to do in the middle school. So we're asking that he be compensated for the days of work that he'll have to do during the month of July.
I have a question. I like to follow this along every summer. You've hired 4, going to be 5. Care to take a shot about what your total is going to be by the time you get to August?
17.
How much?
17 is my guess.
Is that because of Mrs. Tice?
Pretty much.
Really?
It is, and I think we've had, the middle school has been hot this year, I would say. That's the building that has the most turnover this year.
Well, we can't wait for the next 2 meetings.
Yeah, it is.
July and August will be interesting, right?
I'm at 38 interviews so far. So, yeah, it's a lot of interviews.
Thank you.
No problem.
Okay, roll call, please.
Question,
Yes.
Mr. Berry, just for clarification, item 11F is included
Pardon?
in this motion?
It is.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
Yes.
He said it.
Item 11F
Yeah.
is included.
Yes.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Llewellyn,
Yes.
Mrs. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Wolf,
Yes.
Mr. Cox,
Yes.
Mr. Henry,
Yes.
Item number 12 deals with classified personnel items. Mr. Berry.
Superintendent recommends that the board approve the following personnel items. Item 12A, employ the following individual pending approval by the Bureau of Criminal Identification and Investigation and Consensual Drug Screening as required by Ohio Revised Code 3319.291 and the policies of the West Carrollton City School District.
I need a motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Second.
Comments? Jack, anything? Okay, sounds good. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Wolf,
Yes.
Mr. Cox,
Yes.
Mr. Henry,
Yes.
Mr. Llewellyn.
Yes.
Item number 13 deals with education program for a student. Mrs. Tice, your name is on there.
Okay, I should have reading glasses here. All right, the superintendent recommends that the board approve the adoption of Frog Street Press, Frog Street Academy Early Childhood Education.
Wait, the one above
Did I
it.
skip one?
Yep, 13.
Okay, I'm sorry.
You want to borrow my glasses?
Probably should. I'm
Fast
sorry.
forward, right?
Yeah, that's right. It happens fast. It's like one morning you wake up and you can't read.
Yes,
Okay,
it does.
all right, I apologize.
We
This-
hold it.
Yeah. Yeah, over there. Okay. The superintendent recommends that the board enter into a contract as presented with respect to the educational program for a student for the period beginning April 23rd, 2021 through April 18, 2022.
Okay, motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Second.
Comments?
No, it's our typical
Okay,
student going to another facility.
sounds good. Roll call, please.
Mr. Wolf,
Yes.
Mr. Cox,
Yes.
Mr. Henry,
Yes.
Mr. Llewellyn,
Yes.
Mrs. Miller.
Yes. Item number 14 is Mr. Myers, or Dr. Myers, sorry. He should be running up there right now. Actually, it's next two, so he gets to stay.
Superintendent recommends that the board approve the adoption of Frog Street Press, Frog Street Academy Early Childhood Education for pre-K. Did I skip it? No, I didn't.
No, the purchase,
The purchase price for this resource is $22,495.
I need a motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Second.
And these are the items that we have before us. Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Cox,
Yes.
Mr. Henry,
Yes.
Mr. Llewellyn,
Yes.
Mrs. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Wolf,
Yes.
Item number 15, Dr. Myers. you're
The
up.
superintendent recommends that the board approve the adoption of 95% groups, 95% core phonics curriculum for grades kindergarten through third. The purchase price for this resource is $78,697.80.
Motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Second.
And again, these are the things, so roll call.
Mr. Henry,
Yes.
Mr. Llewellyn,
Yes.
Mrs. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Wolf,
Yes.
Mr. Cox.
Yes.
Can I interrupt here and say that that's kind of what I was talking about with Mrs. Tice, that you have evidence that this program is good. And so to spend $78,000 on it, you're saying, yeah,
Yeah.
we know.
Yeah, it's part of the adoption process is to look at the research base that the company built the program on.
Thank you.
Okay. Item number 16 is Mrs. Jones. She's coming this direction.
The superintendent recommends that the board approve the adoption of Savvis Interactive Science and lab kits for grades K through 8 for a term of 6 years. This purchase includes consumable workbooks, online subscriptions for each student, as well as lab kits for small group lab stations. The purchase price for this resource is $383,060.
I need a motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Second.
And we've reviewed those. Roll call, please.
Mr. Llewellyn,
Yes.
Mrs. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Wolf,
Yes.
Mr. Cox,
Yes.
Mr. Henry,
Yes.
Item number 17, Mrs. Jones.
The superintendent recommends that the board approve the adoption of Savas Science textbooks for College Credit Plus Biology, Environmental Science, Forensic Science, College Credit Plus Chemistry, and Human Anatomy and Physiology. This is a 6-year purchase and includes textbooks and online subscriptions for each student. The purchase price for this resource is $62,572.
Motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
When I was at the junior high a long time ago, once we identified students who needed to be in, shall we say, top sections of math and all that kind of stuff, we because I used Iowa scores. Now there's something, a blast from the past, but Iowa scores to determine those students, and we pretty much just did it. We didn't ask. I had a wonderful mentee in the college the College Promise program. She came out of the middle school with algebra, a credit in algebra from 7th grade, a credit in geometry in 8th. I mean, she was that kind of a student. But in science, that wasn't her cup of tea. So when she, in 9th grade, she took, and I hate to use these terms because, but regular biology. She did not take AP biology. And who was I to do anything about that? It just happened. I think by the end of the year she regretted it. She wished she hadn't. She wished she'd have been AP, but that's a lot of social interaction issues as much as it is academic. It seems to me if we're going to spend this money on these things, shouldn't we have some kind of a situation where we tell students, well, this is what you're going to take,
Yes.
and simply because we're spending all this money on this program, and if you're capable, this is where you ought to be.
Yes, so a couple comments on that. With College Credit Plus, they have to meet the criteria from the partnering college. So they have what is called an AccuPlacer test, that if a student is interested in entering into a College Credit Plus class, we offer them in every subject, they have to meet that requirement. There's also an or to that. They could also score a certain score on the ACT as well. So that's really our higher level. Now we do offer honors in a couple of these other ones, and so that is by teacher recommendation, and they look at several criteria. So they do certainly have conversations with the teachers. Teachers have conversations with them to put them in the right place based on their performance. And
well, again, my experience years ago was different from that mentee who chose not to take AP biology, and I didn't. Here again, didn't do anything about it. But and AP biology is probably different from college credit, also.
yes, it is.
Yeah, sure it is.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you have an awful lot of students, and for counselors to be on top of every one of those situations, that's a bit much. But some of them are pretty obvious as to what they ought to be doing.
We also like to try and encourage students who are in an honors class, or if they are, for example, your example of an algebra and a geometry student who is, as a freshman, going to take Algebra 2, to stay in those higher level classes. Don't fall back. Try to stay in those honors classes and just finish it through, and just really encourage them to keep working hard, but stay in those honors classes.
Well, some students like to avoid that.
They do. That is true. That's why the encouragement is necessary.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Wolf,
Yes.
Mr. Cox,
Yes.
Mr. Henry,
Yes.
Mr. Llewellyn,
Yes.
Item number 19 deals with financial reports. Mr. Sloan.
Skip
Oh,
18.
18, sorry. Sorry, you have one more.
Yes.
I was rushing
It's very
through.
costly here. Costly evening. The superintendent recommends that the board approve the adoption of McGraw-Hill Inspire Science for physical science, chemistry, and physics. This is also a 6-year purchase, and it includes textbooks, online subscriptions for each student. The purchase price for this resource is $54,458.
Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Henry?
Yes.
Mr. Llewellyn?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller?
Yes. Now, number 19.
Will all of these be implemented in the 2021-2022 year? Okay, all right.
Or soon to be ordered, and will be coming in the summer, so we'll start with all the resources in the fall.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yep.
Number 19 deals with financial reports. Mr. Sloan.
Thank you. I ask that the board approve as presented the financial reports for May 2021.
Motion?
Motion, please.
So
I-
moved.
My screen went.
Second.
Comments?
These are the reports for 11 months, July of 2020 through May of 2021. On the appropriation modifications, I did add a $500,000 increase to the general fund to cover the textbook orders that you all just approved, just to make sure that we stay within our appropriation for this year. And on the financial reports, I mean, things continue to go well. On the projected actual, revenues are a little bit higher than estimated, and expenses are lower than estimated, so we're looking to end the year in better shape than what we were looking at per the forecast, which is what these numbers were compared to back in around October, November.
Great. All right, roll call, please.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Henry?
Yes.
Mr. Llewellyn?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Item number 20 deals with donations. Mr. Sloan.
I ask that the board approve the following donations: $100 from Harold Curry for the yearbook staff and $480 from SE Live Productions.
Need a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Comments?
The second donation was, it was from a group that, I think it was, might not be using the right terminology, but like a high school basketball showcase that they recently had several weeks ago, and they just wanted to make a contribution or a donation to the school district because we allowed that group to use our high school gym for this. I think it was a high school. I think it was for seniors, I assume, like a showcase basketball event on a weekend day, I believe.
Great. Roll call, please.
Mr. Henry,
Yes.
Mr. Llewellyn,
Yes.
Mrs. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Wolf,
Yes.
Mr. Cox.
Yes.
Item number 21 deals with temporary appropriations resolution. Mr. Sloan.
I ask that the Board of Education adopt the temporary appropriation resolution at the fund level for fiscal year 2021-2022 as presented.
Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Comments?
Every June, we approve a temporary resolution for the fiscal year, which begins July 1st. So that's what this document is. And as I noted, the general fund numbers are the numbers from the 5-year forecast that we approved back in May.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Mr. Llewellyn,
Yes.
Mrs. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Wolf,
Yes.
Mr. Cox,
Yes.
Mr. Henry.
Yes.
Item number 22 deals with a memorandum of understanding. Mr. Berry.
Requesting a motion and a second that the West Carrollton Board of Education approve as presented the memorandum of understanding between the West Carrollton Education Association and the Board of Education of the West Carrollton School District regarding a job description.
Motion,
So moved.
Second.
comments?
Whenever we add a job that isn't currently on the list, it somewhat alters the contract or the agreement, so we have to have a memorandum of understanding so that all parties understand what's occurring on the agreement.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Wolf,
Yes.
Mr. Cox,
yes.
Mr. Henry,
Yes.
Mr. Llewellyn,
Yes.
Item number 23 is job description. Mr. Barry.
Superintendent recommends that the board approve a new job description, number 313, Family Resource and Social Emotional Learning Coordinator as presented.
Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Comments?
Not really. I think Mrs. Tice spoke about that job earlier
Okay.
in a rather lengthy response.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Wolf. Mr. Wolf,
Roll call, please.
Yes.
Mr. Cox,
Yes.
Mr. Henry,
Yes.
Mr. Llewellyn,
Yes.
Mrs. Miller,
Yes. Item number 24.
Superintendent recommends that the board approve the new job description, number 516, Classroom Instructional Paraprofessional as presented.
Okay. Motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments on this one?
No, it's a new job where we honestly hope to get some teachers that didn't get jobs. When we look at different saturated fields like pre-K 3, a lot of those teachers don't get jobs, and this is an opportunity to help some of our students and break down our classes and make them a bit smaller, and hopefully fill some of those gaps for the loss of last year.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Cox,
Yes.
Mr. Henry,
Yes.
Mr. Llewellyn,
Yes.
Mrs. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Wolf,
Yes.
Item number 25, another job description.
Superintendent recommends that the board approve the new job description, number 115, Director of Curriculum, Assessment, Accountability, and Technology as presented.
Motion?
So moved.
Second.
And any comments? Okay.
So we mentioned earlier about our data warehouse and a lot of things that are going on with ESSER. So Dr. Myers will be helping us in this new position. As he lets go of curriculum, he will be keeping his assessment, accountability, and then working with the district as we roll out our new technology platform for assessments and warehousing and the other accessories that we've purchased. So very excited about this position. I think it's going to provide a lot of support to our principals, our DLT, our BLTs, and our TBTs as we monitor what we're doing to help our kids. So I think this is a great opportunity.
Okay. Roll call, please. Oh, no, motion, sorry.
I got that.
Oh, you got that.
Yep.
Roll call then.
Mr. Henry,
Yes.
Mr. Llewellyn,
Yes.
Mrs. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Wolf,
Yes.
Mr. Cox.
Yes.
Item number 26 is our proclamation.
Yes. So I need a motion and a second that the West Carrollton Board of Education approve as presented the proclamation supporting the use of ESSER funds to mitigate COVID.
Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Llewellyn,
Yes.
Mrs. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Wolf,
Yes.
Mr. Cox,
Yes.
Mr. Henry,
Yes.
All right, now we go to our comments and reports section. Anyone have any committee reports? We're really not in school, so, no? No, okay. Comments from our superintendent?
Just again, I'd like to apologize to our retirees that we missed last week and thank them for their years of service. And just to let our parents know, our summer lit camp is starting to wind down. We have, about another week to go. It's been a lot of fun watching the kids come in for lit camp. So that's just one of the things that we'll be able to continue to offer with the ESSER funds. And as always, drive safe. Our kids are out there. Janine and I left yesterday with 3 very littles on their bikes and tricycles in the middle of the road. So we have to make sure we keep them safe. So that's it.
Okay. Mr. Sloan, anything this evening?
The state legislature is, they're still working through their process to come up with a funding formula in the K-12 budget for next year. So maybe when we meet in July, maybe they'll be done by then. So that Senate and House have some differences, and we'll see how they get it worked out.
Okay, sounds good. Mr. Haig, we'll go to you for central office. Anything this evening? Have any building updates for us?
Yeah, just real quick. Building off what Ms. Corbett, I want to thank her for getting that on the website under construction reports. What that'll be is a weekly update that we've been receiving since this project began. And it's photos of the job sites along with an update on what the past week's progress was and what the next week's progress is expected to be. Garmin Miller puts that together, and Rob Tangeman is their construction manager for Garmin Miller, who shows up. He's on our site 2 to 3 days a week, normally monitoring the construction, making sure things are going well, and working as a liaison between Shook and architectural team up there at Garmin Miller. So they'll keep going. The steel, the crane out in front of the ECC, that's the steel for the second floor. It's almost completely done over the B and C complex, which is basically the academic wing. They'll start laying the decking down for the floor, and again, here by the time we get to our next school board meeting, they should have started the pours on the second floor for the concrete flooring on that. So once those floors are poured, you'll see those buildings complete, keep going up. The next step, we should have steel coming in late this week that will be for over top of the admin cafeteria in that area. They should be just about done with the block on that. So it's coming along. The 5-6 building, they're moving on schedule still. A lot of work going on. They got a couple light posts now in the front yard for our new parking lot lights. One of those light posts, the conduit went right through our main water line there, but they were nice enough to repair that for us. So we're back in business at CF Holiday again, but those things will happen, I guess, and there's no cost to the district on that one.
Oh, good.
Just
Even better.
just that phone call I'd never like to hear on that, but those will happen. But they've been pretty good about working through all the issues. So.
Wonderful. Thank you for the update. Mr. Berry, anything this evening?
I'd like to compliment the team over the past 3 weeks working to get a plan together that Melissa presented. I think we worked well together, and there's a lot of communication and a lot of that occurred over the past 3 weeks that I appreciate being part of.
Great, thank you. Mrs. Tice, anything this evening?
No, these guys already said I have the milkshakes for coffee. I can't have fries to the order.
All right. We don't have any general comments from the public this evening, so we'll go to comments from our board members. Mr. Wolf, dare I ask?
Last meeting, I was talking about some businesses that partner with us and allow some organizations to hold fundraisers. Chipotle has been doing that for quite a while, and Rusty Bucket and all this. I want to add one to it for tonight. O'Reilly Auto Parts over here on Springboro Pike. Last Saturday, the volleyball team had a car wash, and it was right there out in front of O'Reilly's. Certainly, and I don't know how it works in terms of water usage and all that kind of stuff, but anyways, they had to share that area with a food truck selling tacos, but that's okay. But certainly that particular location in terms of traffic is a lot better than the high school. And the high school, you don't have to bother anybody if you're over there, so I'm sure that's appreciated from a building manager point of view. And the other thing I want to mention, this is not a business, but the West Carrollton Football Alumni Club had its annual golf outing last Friday. They usually get about 80 people, sometimes a little bit more, but they generate a lot of money from that then they turn around and give to the football club or football program. And I that triggered something in my mind in terms of making sure people know West Carrollton got quite a bit of ink last Friday because the Miami Valley Football Coaches Association had their annual north-south game. They didn't. A lot of that stuff they didn't have last year. The two things I just got through mentioning didn't exist last year. But number one, our coach Dion Black was the coach of the South team. I failed to get any names of any of our players that were on the team. Do you happen to know Mr. Barry? All right, I'll work on that. But the other person that got us some ink was Bob Brigatti, who was a football coach here for a long, long time. He was recognized for his years of service. One of the realities is if you stay around long enough, you get recognized for things. But anyways, he was, so we had, West Carrollton was represented quite a bit from that. I want to go back to what I said earlier about the fact that the volleyball team had the car wash. That kind of gets us thinking that probably in 2 months now, when we get closer and closer to school starting, we're going to have a lot of sports teams and a lot of elementaries and a lot of other programs doing fundraisers. This was just one example early on. I hope everybody gets ready for that because it's very important. I went through Mr. Sloan's treasurer's report, and some of that stuff's very, very interesting in terms of funds and how much money some of these sports teams have, and in some cases, it's not a good situation. There were 4 teams on there that actually had a negative balance, which isn't good. There were several that were in the 3,000 area. But bottom line, none of these schools. What's interesting is the one that had the most money was the one that just had a fundraiser. Volleyball has more money than anybody else, which sometimes reflects on the coach. That's all I'm going to say about that. But this is something we're going to have to watch when we get close to August, because the two things we have to have, and I said this last meeting, participation. We have to hope that we don't have much control over this. It's not ours to say, but hopefully there's a lot of students that go out for everything we got. I was talking to Mrs. Miller today, and she's kind of pleased with the numbers she has coming out and working out. I would hope every coach that we've got for fall sports would say the same thing, but I don't know. It's always iffy at this time, and it shouldn't be. Some of the teams in the league that we're in have the same problem and others don't. And so we'll watch that very carefully. But obviously the second thing would be support for those teams. They all need money, and the problem is they're after the same people's money when it comes to getting money. And so, those two things, we'll have to keep an eye on it, because although we don't have control over that, we certainly need to monitor that and see how things are going. I'm not sure what we'll do if things don't turn out well for some of these teams in terms of their finances, but at least we can watch it, and you can get your checkbook out. He can get his checkbook out. Help some of these out. I don't know. Just watch it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Henry, anything this evening?
Yes. Trying to think who to address this to, so listen up, staff. This is an Associated Press story, and it's nationwide, but I'm asking you if it affects us in the same manner. The article title is Going Back to School. Schools across U.S. brace for fall surge of kindergartners. Got the topic? Kindergartners. Hiring additional teachers in anticipation of what will be one of the largest kindergarten classes ever as enrollment rebounds after our medical condition last year. Some students sat out last year, did not attend pre-K or K classes. In the right age group, they could be back this fall as kindergartners. Another point out of the article is that students are not as prepared as they should be to return to classes full time. We know that. We've done many things to address that concern, offer many opportunities for families and their young people to step up into the game to grab that difference. This report out of Rutgers University found that the number of 4-year-olds participating in preschool fell from 71% before COVID to 54% afterwards, with poor children much less likely to attend in-person classes. Even children were held out of school because of their health concerns. They cite an example of the state of Kansas, where kindergarten enrollment fell this past school year by nearly 9%. So I'd like a little interaction, but I've got another topic too. Would anyone like to field some of those questions about our new incoming kindergarten students?
I was going to say, are you going to buy your prize?
Paid by the word.
I'll be brief. We did, it was interesting because when we were reading one of the job descriptions, the newly adopted job descriptions, I forgot to mention something in our plan which speaks to what you're talking about there, Don. First of all, we had probably a very similar decline in enrollment in preschool as what you cited. We typically have about 180 kids, 185 kids in preschool. That dropped to right around 136 to 138 at the end of the school year. We typically have about 270 students in kindergarten, and that dropped last year to 210. We have asked you to adopt this evening that job description for the instructional paraprofessional in the classroom. We intend to hire 3 of those, 1 at each first grade level, because we have students who will have the option, age-wise, to skip kindergarten completely. So it's not even just a resurgence in the number of kindergartners. We expect for the number of kindergartners to rebound to what they were pre-COVID. But we also expect that our first grade numbers may increase, and they may increase with students who have not been in school at all, have not been in kindergarten. And so those paraprofessionals will be put in those first grade teams to be able to team with a teacher in the classroom and provide additional support. So we have considered that. We expect that will happen. We expect that we have students who will have greater needs than in years past. I will say also, I think our kindergartners, our other first graders coming to school, are going to be much more prepared. Our kids who were in kindergarten coming to first grade, much more prepared than students in some other districts may have been, because if you recall, we did offer kindergarten services still throughout the school year. So I feel like we did definitely make the right decision in that area. I'm more concerned about our second graders, to be quite honest. Than I am about our first graders who attended as kindergartners. Does that answer your question?
Thank you. A different topic. If I drop a past West Carrollton elementary teacher's name on you, who might recognize him? Nate Thompson taught for us at CF Holiday Elementary. Can you help me, Mrs. Tice? Was he with us for about 6 years? Yeah. Okay. He left West Carrollton and went to Oakwood City Schools Elementary. But what he took from his time with us to Oakwood was his ability to gain student interest. Elementary student interest in getting out of the box. And music was the key. Mr. Thompson was able to gather the resources and make the change. Mr. Wolf talked about sports participation. This is academic participation using music as the roadway to get beyond where we are. I'm not going to give you all of the information here, but when Nate Thompson left us and went to Smith Elementary in Oakwood, he took this process of organizing and getting students and staff together to use music as an academic learning process, not just vocals or instruments. Nate says in this article that he's in his dream job. He's teaching kids. He's using music, which he loves. And he received the attention of, I want to get this right, the Springfield Symphony Orchestra, who granted him some money to use to continue the process. Springfield is a little bit farther away from West Carrollton than Oakwood is. But my point is that we do good things in West Carrollton. Sometimes they don't get the attention while the program is being developed. And this is one teacher driving a program. It wasn't part of our curriculum, planned curriculum. It was engagement. He's used videos, gotten parent permission to video the students in using their music talents to learn and retain information and move on. My oldest grandson went through Nate Thompson's class, and I've pulled out last night 2 of those videos, just to listen and watch. And it's remarkable that the teaching and learning process does merge on a small scale that makes a big difference. All those hundreds of students that went through CF Holiday in 6 years and went through Nate Thompson's class and did the music, the video, the morning announcements. Wow. Let's do more of it. Thank you.
Well, he's not only a former employee, but he graduated in 1989.
Thank you.
And I know that because he graduated with my youngest son.
Okay. Mr. Cox, anything this evening?
Just 2 things real quick. I'd like to thank all the staff, administration, all the way down to the teachers who spent all the extra time on this crazy year. You know, some of the stuff was compensated, but I know there was hundreds and hundreds of hours that were not. Some of you folks spent times at home, first thing in the morning before daylight. I get it. So thank you for all the help. This was definitely not a normal year. And then adding in all of the ESSER stuff on top of this, I know was a bigger project yet, on top of trying to get ready for the new year to come up. So thank you for that. On a sad note, we lost a middle school student last week. I'm not going to give her name or the family because of confidentiality and privacy. But I urge the parents, if your children knew her, please talk about it. Please get them help. Hospice of Dayton offers a free program, therapy to deal with the grief, things like that. A lot of the churches do too, so please, not only for yourself, but for your child, get that grief help. Help them understand what happened and the feelings that they're feeling right now. I've been a 24-year volunteer grief counselor with Hospice of Dayton with a camp program, and I can tell you that some kids will not even talk about it for a second, and they just need that second to vent their feelings. So please give them a little bit of push. Understand that it's going to be every aspect that you could ever imagine and not imagine. They're going to be angry. They're going to be sad. They're going to be happy. You can't even believe the range of feelings that they have and what they're going through. Kids amaze me every day at this camp. It is the hardest thing I do every year. It takes me about a month to decompress from it just to hear the stories. So I can't even imagine our kids that were close to this young lady. Reach out for that help. Please give them the opportunity to find that help. And don't tell them it's going to be okay, because it's more than likely it's not okay with them. Just get them into a direction and get them the help that they need if you can't do it yourself. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Llewellyn, anything this evening?
Just one thing. I have a story to tell, but I have a question first because, well, you'll understand why. Can somebody in the room, Dr. Townsend or Devin perhaps would be the 2 most likely to come up with this name quickly at least, tell me who our new assistant principal in the high school is going to be? Zeke, right? Okay. I don't know. Is it Z-I-N-K? Is that how you spell his last? Okay. Well, I was approached. Well, I work from home now for the last 7 months, which is just awesome. But when computers don't work well, I have to go to the job center and get it replaced. So I was doing that a few days ago, and a coworker of mine who's child attended Tip City High School stopped me and said she didn't like the fact that Mr. Zink was coming here and they were going to lose him. And she went on for about 10 minutes telling me why, just how much he's loved there and how dedicated he is to the kids and attends all kind of things for them, and that they're really going to miss him. And then she kind of, bashed the board and staff and things because of the fact he's leaving, but and the fact they don't pay enough there. I mean, she went through a bunch of reasons, but the bottom line was that she was just glowing about him and a little ticked off at us for taking him away. But he was going to go somewhere, so I'm glad he came here, it sounds like. But it just sounds like he got rave reviews, and I know that's just one parent. She didn't have to stop me, though. I wasn't stopping to talk to her. I was just walking through the hallway, and she grabbed me. So just wanted to throw that out there that it sounds like, I know he hasn't necessarily been in the building yet for a school year. When it comes up, he'll start in August. But just wanted to say that it sounds like, definitely in one parent's opinion, you guys made a great decision bringing him here, and I'm sure that that's going to prove out over time anyway. But that's all I got.
Okay, thank you. Just a couple things here. I want to congratulate all the retirees. I was absent last week at the last meeting, so I'd like to congratulate them, and hopefully you'll have time in the sun and enjoy all of the things that you want to do. There's summer reading program. Please get out and read, children. You can, I'm sure, go to the library. We got a brand new one. And check out some books, curl up in the corner, read. You need to do that. We have sports camps going on. Please take a look at our Pirate athletic page, and you can see that. If you're interested in tennis, I'm up there Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursdays at Wilson Park. The kids are coming out, and hopefully they will continue to do so. And lastly, I'd like to thank the central office team, all of you, for putting in such a lot of work on such a special program for all of our kids here in the district. I'm sure all of the parents and children and staff will all benefit hugely from all of this. So thank you. So, let's see here. We do not have an executive session, and so I will entertain a motion in a second to adjourn this meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Henry?
Yes.
Mr. Llewellyn?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
This concludes this meeting. We only have one meeting in July, and it is, let me get the 14th of July. Thank you.